Hello everyone, my name is Zhaopen Li. Today we are going to present our investigation into Melbourne livability. The topic of livability has gained significant attention through social media platforms over the recent years. This time we use Twitter because it is one of the most popular online social media platforms, and it provides users the opportunity to share and communicate their opinions with each other from all over the world. Given the increasing popularity and the importance of online social media networks such as Twitter, we are confident that we can get a tremendous amount of sharing and discussion of information. As the aim of this project is to analyze the livability of Melbourne, we harvest tweets with respect to the indicators of Melbourne housing and opportunity. Meanwhile, statistical data could be downloaded from Australian Urban Research Infrastructure Network and thereby be used to compare with the Twitter data. Now I'm going to introduce our 5 group members. Ray Wang is our Ansible developer. I am the Twitter Harvest developer. Yuer Zhu is the data analyst. Liyan Zhu and Yifei Du are our full stack engineer. Then we will move on to the map.
Now I will briefly demonstrate how you can display the data on the map. Navigate to the map page and you will see an empty Google map. Now click on the drop-down menu above to select which data collection you want to display. Here we have 3 options. One is the old Twitter set provided by our lecturer. Second, you can choose to view the stats of the tweets we just harvested in the past few weeks. At the bottom, you can see the data we pulled out from Orin. Next, we provide 2 scenarios for this project. First one is relating to Melbourne housing. The second one is how different languages are distributed within Melbourne region. And then you can choose to group this data into different statistical area level. Here we provide 3 different levels, from SA level 2 to SA level 4. Now hit the display button and the data will be divided into several chunks, which are colored based on the number of tweets within this area. If you click on a region, its stats will be displayed at the bottom left corner. For the housing scenario, we score each tweet with a value from -1 to +1 via a sentiment classifier. This panel will display the min, sum, count, min and max value of these tweets from this area. You can click on different regions to check their results. For the language scenario, the detail panel will display a pie chart showing what languages are used. We can see that most of the tweets are written in English, which is obvious. We can also choose to see some data provided by Orin, such as the true language distribution or the housing situation. Obviously, we don't have lots of tweets from Orin to do the sentiment analysis. Instead, we managed to get some house prices and then wrote some scripts to calculate a score for each of these areas. Their scores are then compared with our tweet data to see what is similar and what is not.
So here is the conclusion. According to the old and new Twitter data, the bar charts show that people living in inner and inner South Melbourne feel satisfied about Melbourne housing, as the average sentiment scores of tweets relating to the housing in Melbourne are both highly positive in the two given areas. While in other areas across Melbourne, including Northwest and the Southeast, the result is completely different since the sentiment scores are almost negative. Regarding the house price bubble in Melbourne, a large number of people are tweeting positively in real time. But on the contrary, the attitude of most people was negative about Melbourne housing from the orange data. The comparison indicates that Melbourne has become more and more livable. Next, with respect to the indicator of Melbourne opportunity, both old and new Twitter data illustrate that there is a remarkable proportion of people who like to use other languages worldwide in given areas across Melbourne. Compared to the statistical data from Orange, it seems like a quarter of people who like to use other languages except English in Melbourne, which indicates that there are many people with different cultural backgrounds, but still willing to stay in Melbourne. More importantly, it means that Melbourne has provided many potential opportunities for both citizens and foreigners to study, live, and work in Melbourne. So finally, to put it in a nutshell, Melbourne is a livable city with respect to housing and opportunities. Thank you for watching.
Okay, thanks Ray. Here is our CouchDB. We collect three databases: housing, language, and old tweets. Twitter is only used to test when the database has just been cracked, not used in the project. Housing is the data calculated for the housing category. A total of 34 JSONs has been cracked so far. We have done a MapReduce here. Map is performed with the set2 code as the key and the sentiment score as the value, and reduce uses the preset stats of CouchDB. We can get some counts, mean, max, and some score. Here is the results of the map. You can see there are three levels of keys, which are set4 code, set3 code, and set2 code. Here is the scores. Then we can get the statistics of different levels regions by setting the group level of reduce. Here is language. The data structure is similar as housing, but the data related to language in Melbourne is included. A MapReduce is also written here, but it is a little different from housing. We set language as the first key, then set2 code, and the value is 1. Reduce is the sum to use to count the number of the tweets. Here is the result of map, very similar to housing. If we choose the group level of reduce to be 1, then we will see the results of the whole Melbourne, and the other ones are the regions. The old tweets are the same, except that the old tweets use the Melbourne preview year data provided by the lecturers. Those data are also stored after being processed. MapReduce also has housing and language, and the content is similar as before. Only the housing is need to search whether have the some related data in the text.
I will show you how to deploy the MRC instances and set up every required service. First, we need to create a key pair in MRC and save it into the config file for the instance connection. Then we set our instance variables here. There are secret groups, the instance image, and the instance key name, and volumes for each instances. After all instance variables have been set, we can run the Ansible script here to create volume, secret group, and instances in MRC through our local PC. When instance creation is finished, we need to configure the IP. We need to see the IP of each instance. There are 4 instances, and there are 4 IPs for each one. And then we set 1 master instance and 2 slave, DB slave instance, and 1 for the web server. Once we have instances, we need to configure the environment of each instance before service. The instance need to add proxies to make sure they can access externally, and the SS key to the instances, and install dependencies such as pipe, Python, Git, and Docker. And then we need to clone our GitHub repository to every instances to control the version of our application. Once every instance are ready to deploy service, we need to go to this file. This file shows all responsibility of every instances. For the DB servers, all DB server instances need to install CouchDB, and the DB master need to set up CouchDB cluster to connect the master node and the slave nodes. And there are 2 slave nodes, which is instance 2 and instance 3. The instance 2 need to crawl the housing Twitter, and the instance 3 need to crawl the language Twitter. For the web server, we need to set up the front end and back end to the web server to make sure the website can run and connect to the CouchDB properly. In our system design, the CouchDB and the Twitter harvest and the web server are running in the Docker container, so they are isolated from each other in one server. In this file, we put the CouchDB image, the username, password here, and the proxy environment here. There are configure variables for the Ansible running. There is a one-click deployment file. This file combines environment installation and server deployment. Once the instances are created in MRC, the service can be deployed in one click.